Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you're happy and well. A few weeks ago, one of my favourite YouTubers, Maksy, made this YouTube video about how to incorporate Edwardian fashion into modern fashion. And I was like, go on. And part of what she said was that if you want to do that, it's probably needing to have an Edwardian blouse. Actually, she didn't say that, but that's what I took from it. And I don't have an Edwardian blouse. And the ones on Etsy, like she suggested to get, are so expensive, but, you know, reasonably so. They're from the 70s, 70s does Edwardian, or actually Edwardian. It's understandable that they're kind of expensive, but I don't have all that much money. So I thought to myself, I'll make one. My plan is to look through Etsy and Pinterest to see if I can find any Edwardian blouses and take inspiration from them. And after I've looked at the blouses online, I plan to go out to secondhand shops and see if I can find some inexpensive clothing and merge it up into Edwardian thing. It'll make sense in a minute, just hang on. So a lot of blouses that I found had like this triangle of lace, kind of like a bib, in my opinion, but very pretty. I think that that's very stereotypical of Edwardian fashion. The other thing I noticed are the high lace collars. Oh, that sounds so itchy. I think my favourite one, this one here, has puffy sleeves. I'm not that much fan of puffy sleeves. I tend to notice them in my peripheral vision and go, but a lot of the blouses do seem to have puffy sleeves. So I guess puffy sleeves we will have. Time to go thrifting. I'm back! The first thing I got was this blouse, which has a high collar lace thing, very Edwardian actually, and a lace front, but it is too small for me, and it has foundation on it. I'm only planning to use it as like a guide of what I want. Then after I'm finished with it, I'll donate it back. Next thing I got, which is going to be very helpful I think, is this lace curtain. It doesn't have a frilly edge, unfortunately, and I didn't check that it did, but I think that it'll be good to make the sleeves out of because it's quite thick but it doesn't feel scratchy. That should be good. Next was not this shirt but this shirt. Did I seriously get two v-neck shirts? Am I an idiot? Okay, I'm a little bit of an idiot. I got two long-sleeved shirts because it's winter. I meant to get short-sleeved ones because that's what it's like in the photos. They both have the same neckline, both the same deep V. I don't know what I'll do about that. I guess I'll just kind of pick whichever one feels nicer and go from there. And the last thing I got, just to see if I can challenge myself, because I do want to finish this in one day, but I got this long white dress, which I thought I might make Edwardian as well, but I'm not going to do that today. If you want to see a video of that, let me know in the comments and we'll do that. Another thing that I realised when I got home is that I want to use these particular puffy sleeves because that just seems to be a thing in all of the photos, is puffy sleeves that go foot and then foot. And I was like, how do I do that? Because I'm not very good with sleeves, generally speaking. I found that I have this pattern which has puffy sleeves. So I will cut out the puffy sleeves in the lace and then attach it to the shirt. That's my plan. Wish me luck. To make the bib, I measured from the corner of my shoulder to under my sternum, which is that fleshy bit between your ribs. You'll need to remember that measurement later. This measurement is for the bib thing that you see in a lot of the pictures of the Edwardian blouses. To make the sleeve, I started by having lace folded over. This way I could make two identical sleeves. I then laid the pattern piece over the lace, pinned it and cut it out. I also figured out that if you did not have a pattern for this sleeve, like I did, you could achieve the same bell shape by measuring the circumference of your shoulder, adding about 5 centimeters and then using the curved bit. Then you would need to measure from your shoulder to your fingertips to make the length of the sleeve, and there does need to be a little bit extra for a later step. The next thing to cut out was the bib. I wasn't really sure how to do this, but I measured and then second guessed myself and then measured again and second guessed myself a little bit more until I finally figured out that the way to make a decent triangle was using masking tape. To make the longer side of the triangle, you need the measurement from the tip of one shoulder to the other, and then the shorter sides of the triangle are made up by the measurement I showed you before. I also did this on a folded over piece of material so that you get the front and the back of the bib, so that it goes on the front of the shirt and the back of the shirt. The final bit of preparation before sewing is the shirt itself. If I'd gotten a singlet top or maybe a short sleeve top, I wouldn't have done this, but because it had long sleeves, I measured, taped and then cut off the long sleeves of the shirt, leaving a little bit of room from the seam that holds the sleeves onto the shirt, all while the shirt was inside out. I also decided that in order to have a better looking finished project, it would be best to hem the sleeve so that it didn't roll up or look kind of weird. To do this, I folded the sleeve under itself twice and then pinned it. And then I sewed that in place with a zigzag stitch and tried not to stretch it too much while all this was happening. So I kind of ended up with like a muscle shirt type thing. Waiter, percolator. Because I was using a pattern, I folded down the pattern 1/3 of the way from the curved bit and pinned on some bias binding. If you weren't using a pattern, I think you would just need to measure from the curvy bit to the straight bit and then figure out 1/3 of that and it would work kind of the same. Anyway, I pinned the bias binding and sewed on the edge of the binding onto the lace. And I learnt from this experience that you need to be absolutely certain that the bias binding is straight on the sleeve before you sew it, because you cannot unpick mistakes on lace. I decided the next thing to do was figure out how to gather it above the elbow before I sewed the whole sleeve together. So I measured the circumference around above my elbow and cut some narrow elastic to be that measurement. And then I thread that through the bias binding, which is a lot more difficult than I thought it would be because my threader kept poking through the lace. I then sewed the ends of the elastic together, and after that I sewed the sleeves together. It was just the straight sides matching up to each other, and I guess I've got to film that bit, but that's what I did. Time to sew the lacy sleeves to the muscle shirt. It was actually quite surprising how well the lace cooperated with being sewn. I thought it would just come apart, but it didn't. To sew the sleeves, I matched the curved bit of the armhole to the armhole of the shirt, and then I pinned and sewed it together in a zigzag stitch, which ended up being kind of bad. It's now day 2. I thought this project would last for 1 day, and it's ended up lasting for 2, which I'm less than pleased about, I have to say. I discovered that I sewed the sleeve onto the wrong side of the shirt, which I am not pleased about either, so I've had to unpick that and then re-sew it on. Yeah, it's not looking very good, I gotta say. But, I think that the dodginess of it will be hidden pretty well. So, yes, I'm just going to continue and sew the other sleeve onto the muscle shirt and then go from there. So I've sewed the 2 triangles together. I laid them down on the shirt and sewed from the sides in a little bit to about there to kind of where a head hole could be. And now, I'm not very good at seeing things in 3 dimensions, so this is why it's possibly going to be a mess. What I'm going to try to do next is attach the neck piece to the triangles, and then I'll attach the whole lot to the shirt. That's my plan anyway. I sewed the collar onto the inside of the bib, then I folded the extra bit of lace over and a bit to make it into a short sort of standing up collar. And of course I left a gap at the back because I intend to cut down this line here so that I can open the bib thing so that I can get my head into it. I sewed the collar onto the inside of the bib and then turned it the right way out and brought the collar out with it. I matched the neck hole of the shirt to the lacy collar and matched the seams to the triangles of the shoulder seams of the shirt. I couldn't figure out how in my head to machine sew this part, so I hand sewed the shoulder seams to the shirt of the seams of the bib thing. I hope that makes sense. Once I'd sewn both sides of the bib to the shirt, I flipped it over so that the back was facing up. I then snipped a few inches down the back of the lace and the shirt. I then folded the spare cut lace in to encase the raw edges of the shirt and hand sewed all that. I'd actually forgotten to do this, so the next thing I had to do was hem the sleeves. As with everything else, I folded the edge of the lace over twice, pinned in place, and then sewed it. I decided that at the back, instead of using buttons like many of the pictures had, I would thread narrow ribbon through the lace to hold it in place. I burnt the edges of the ribbon with a flame so that they wouldn't fray. I also decided to sew some parts of the lace bib down onto the shirt so it wouldn't just fly up and be a nuisance.
And they believe that I love.
So I finally finished the top, and I decided that I needed to style it. The first look I tried was more an Edwardian sort of style, with a long skirt, a wide belt, and my hair in a braid with a ribbon. I also decided to add a little cameo pin because that just seemed to add a little bit of vintage style vibeness to it. And then of course I decided to try a little bit more modern as well and wear some 40s high-waisted jeans and modern hair. I'm actually loving this lighting because it's currently storming outside, and I sort of love this top. I'm pretty happy with how it went actually. It's not the best because I'm not the most accurate or the most patient person in the world, but it went well. And all I did was cut up an old shirt and some curtains, and boom! I'm pretty darn impressed with it. And it is a bit of a costume piece, I suppose, but I imagine that I probably will wear this a little bit. I'll probably wear it best with jeans because that's less costumey. So I hope that this sort of tutorial was interesting or helpful, and if you tried it yourself, tag me on Instagram. My Instagram is Magical Little Corner. It's linked down below, as well as Rachel Maksy's channel, which you have to go and check out because, you know, she's amazing, so you have to. I hope you enjoyed this little video, and I'll see you next time. Bye! So I hope that this sort of tutorial was normal people wait for cars. I wait for cuckoo clocks. I didn't want to finish this project in one day. Time to discuss the... Time to discuss... Simon, we talked about this. If you're gonna be in this room while I'm doing this, you've got to be quiet. No, I'm serious. Please. He's very excited about the prospect of Edwardian fashion. Simon, I will send you out. So now what I'm going to... What the hell is going on? I sewed the collar onto the... Simon, I will send you out.